Hi, everybody. This is Jose Palomino with another episode of the Revenue Throughput Podcast. And today's guest is Adam King of thinklikeafish.co.uk. And Adam is a rare practitioner out there in the world of marketing and sales for B2B, in that he also understands, as we do, and as you know from the Revenue Throughput Podcast and the Revenue Throughput System, we look at the world systemically. We understand that your sales and marketing growth are not just a function of the obvious sales and marketing activities. So listen closely to Adam as he's going to share some real gems on how to pull levers for maximum leverage to grow your revenue. And let's welcome Adam now. Hey, welcome Adam to the Revenue Throughput Podcast.
Hey, how you doing, Jose? Great to be here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's very excited to actually have you on the show for a couple of reasons that our listeners will hear as we explore this topic. But Adam, just for context for our listeners, who do you best serve and what do you do for them? And then we'll take it from there.
So I primarily work with established businesses that sell a high trust, high value service. So that could be professional service, B2B services, that kind of thing. And what I basically do is I help them to create breakthrough revenues by basically looking at their business holistically and uncovering a lot of the hidden opportunities and the hidden assets and the hidden leverage points, help them identify them and basically help them pull those levers to achieve what I call exponential growth.
Wow, so you are definitely a man after my own heart on this because you look no, and you know, in our pre-conversation, we just alluded to the fact that there's no lack of people and practitioners, consultants, service providers that can do all the different pieces that seem obviously to be sales and marketing related, you know, revenue related. And
Absolutely.
when I took a look, and by the way, your site is thinklikeafish.co.uk. Okay,
That's
so I
right.
love
Yep.
to think like a fish. I'm going to ask about that in a moment. Okay, but when I looked at it, I really got a sense that okay, here's somebody who actually understands that revenue doesn't just happen as a result of lead gen or even a sales conversation, but the totality of the company really serves it. So if you were talking to an owner, what are some of the questions you'd ask to uncover, you know, like you said, some of these you call them hidden leverage points?
Mm. Well, I actually, when I'm sat down talking with someone, I actually have a tool that I use. It's called the revenue multiplier and the revenue multiplier calculator. And I essentially sort of sit them down. And the first thing I do is I actually take the emotion out of things, and we actually look at the business from that 35,000 foot view, and actually go through and look at things and look at them by the numbers. Because this exercise, and by the way, your listeners can get a copy. I'll tell them where to get a copy at the end of this. This exercise is effectively like a lie detector test,
Okay.
because you cannot hide from essentially, I guess, the reality of what's going on in your business. And we look at seven, what I call the seven revenue multipliers that exist in a business. And we look at what is performing well, what is not performing well. And we look to maybe identify some of the basically the biggest opportunities that can get some of the quicker wins, but ultimately some of the things that can be done over the long term to increase the performance in each of these indicators. So that's essentially what we do and what we go down to. And then we start really sort of diving into the nitty gritty of what could be done, some of the actions to take, some of the strategies and all that kind of thing. But a lot of the time, I think, as you alluded to there, people will come to me saying one thing and leave the conversation with a very different view of the reality of their business and the reality of what it's going to take to actually get them to the end result that they're looking to achieve.
So, what would be an example, Adam, of just one revenue multiplier that you know, so somebody listening could actually get their head right? Oh, that doesn't sound
Mm.
like just get more Facebook ads.
No, it doesn't. And as I say, there are seven of them, but a lot of the time it comes down to the biggest leverage that you can have in your business. A lot of the time it comes down, and this is the one that will really impact all seven, and that is your offer. Like offer creation, offer development, and really getting to understand what it is that your ideal client wants. What are their needs? What are their desires? What are their jobs to be done? What's keeping them up at the night? What are they sort of thinking about when they say, if I could only just get more of this, or if only I could find a solution for that, or this is driving me nuts, why can't I fix it? That kind of thing. And then it's about crafting the offer. It's very different to the services that you provide. It's the offer. What is that promise that you make to your ideal client to get them a result? It's an outcome and results focused promise that contains all of the things that go into what you deliver, which is obviously your messaging, your pricing, your packaging, the delivery mechanism, all that kind of thing. But really understanding what it is at the heart of what your ideal client wants, and then crafting that offer in a way that is irresistible. I call it a dynamite offer, because it's kind of like, using my fishing analogy, if you picked it up, it's a bit like being able to go out and fish with dynamite, throwing it into the sea and getting an explosion of interest. And one thing I like to make sure that I highlight, that we operate a catch and release policy here at Think Like a Fish, and we like to think that we just stun the fish and we don't actually kill them, because that can be a little bit crude. It can get a little bit lost in the analogy there sometimes. But that's essentially one of the biggest leverage points in any business.
Wow. So the offer, right? So clearly, that can be challenging in, especially with let's say somebody has been in an industrial business, industrial category for a long period of time. They go, listen, we're a precision machine shop. So we, when people ask a request and we turn the piece of steel from this big to this big and we give it these indentations and carve outs and attach that, that's what we do. So I don't know how to make that sound like a real, like this irresistible offer. Is like people know what they need. We tell them the machines we have, and that's a very typical scenario. So how do you take something that sounds very commodity like it's just blah, it is what it is, and we get the business or we don't get the business, and tell that owner that no, there's actually an offer behind that that could be a lot more compelling?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I don't know an awful lot about that particular industry. So to give you an exact example, I'm not sure if I could give you it, but I can give you an example of the process that we go through to actually come up with it.
Sure.
And the one would be, it's sort of like coming up with an idea. It's thinking about, and there's, I take people through an entire exercise of asking them questions about, who their ideal client is. Some of those questions really deeply understanding what's the result they're after, why are they coming to you, all that kind of thing. And you just come up with a bit of an idea. And then what you need to start to think about is going out and actually talking to your clients, or even going out and talking to your end client, or if you're working with clients, your clients' end clients, and actually interviewing them and asking them questions. So what is it about this that you are, what is it that you're trying to solve? What is it that this is going to do? How is things going to be different afterwards, et cetera, et cetera? You're always trying to find out what the after is, because ultimately it does not matter what you are selling. It doesn't matter whether you are selling marketing services, whether you're a plumber or you're selling one of those complicated industrial steel fabrication things. You're selling the same thing. Every single person on the planet is. You're selling a transformation. You're selling the change from point A to point B. Whereas point A is where they are now. It could be in pain, it could be struggle, it could be stuck, it could be whatever it is, to point B, which is a result, success, something different, an increased status, like something at the end of that. And you are the one that comes in to fill the gap to get there. So your steel fabrication piece is just simply a mechanism to get somebody an outcome and a transformation. And it's your job to work out what that transformation looks like and communicate what that looks like at the end.
And Adam, you used an incredibly sharp turn of phrase that I have to just tell you, I'll be borrowing, which is what the after is, right? Just that thought, that picture. It's a great word picture. What is the after? What is the after? And brought to mind when I did my MBA program, a colleague of mine ran a Porsche dealership. So I went to visit it one day just to catch up with him, and he had one car that it was roped off, like as if it was like a Studio 54 in the old days or something like that. And I said, why is this car roped off? And he says, it's a fully custom Porsche, right? Like totally customized. Those seats, and it's just two leather seats, were like $60,000 for the leather seats, right? So you start thinking, and I said, well, how much is this car? Because you're just curious. Not that I was in the market for that car. He said, this is only $450,000, right? For this Porsche. It was really a very nice car. But I think about the after. the after's not the leather seats or the stitching or the engine or anything like that. There's definitely a a belief or an attitude or feeling that that person who can afford that car is going to get when they sit in that car for the first time. It's nothing to do with the car actually. It's and maybe
Absolutely.
some deep compensatory behavior, but if you could afford it, hey, why not? So I love that. Now,
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely about the after. It's definitely about being able to paint that picture. A big thing that people don't necessarily think about is what you've alluded to there. It's status. Like, how does somebody's identity change as a result of working with you, buying your product, anything like that? And I think that when it comes to the example that you gave, not knowing a lot about that particular industry, but I can always sort of say that sometimes the universal currency that we all deal in and that we want more of is time. So what about your offer can you incorporate an element of time
mm,
into it? So speed. Um, it's like Jeff Bezos said. I remember seeing an interview with him a while ago, and he was being asked about Amazon, and he was asked about his predictions for the future, and he said, "Well, I can't actually tell you what will happen in the next 10 years, but the more important question is actually what is not going to change," and that's what he's built Amazon on. People always want things faster, cheaper, in a more efficient way, and that's why Amazon are as big today. And his offer is very, very simple, and it is still as simple as it's always been: faster, cheaper, better, like more efficient. It's all of that sort of thing. So what can you do? What can you pull out of the steps that you take people through on that path to getting their transformation, and really sort of pull out essentially a transition or a demand trigger to really hook people in and say, I need to know how they do that.
now, so it's interesting, Adam, because somebody listening to this running some sort of B2B company could be an industrial service, a professional service like an accountant, a lawyer, anything like that. Uh, they're hearing this and they say, well, wait a second, I just need help with my sales and marketing, right? And here you are talking about the offer and about time and about, the things take the time they take and so on. So what's the challenge what challenge would you offer to that owner thinking that I really can't change how we do things because I just want better leads, and how you connect the dots there?
I mean, obviously, we all want better leads, and one of the best ways that we can get better leads is making a better offer. Um, it doesn't matter what tactic you put in front of anything, because marketing is an enabler and it's an accelerator. But if you're simply marketing a message or an offer that isn't irresistible, it isn't compelling, it isn't hooking people in, then you are spending a lot of money throwing good after bad. Whereas if you can take this and it doesn't actually matter what tactic you use, like what channel you use. There are pretty much examples of every single one working. That's like the secret of marketing, right? If there ever was one. Every single marketing tactic or channel works. It just needs to be used within the right context, the right framework, within the right strategy. And you have to know whether or not it is right for you and ultimately your ideal client. Is that where they're engaging? You can probably figure out how to make it work, but at the core of everything, it will come back to the foundation: having a message and an offer that attracts the interest of your perfect buyer and actually brings them or reels them into actually wanting to ask that question. How do you do that? Like that's as simple as I can make it.
And well, and something that even undergirds that, which is, I'd like to just get your take on this, is I found in all these years of working with, again, much the same more B2B business owners and so on. You want to start with like, hey, who's your perfect customer? I don't even ask that question that precisely because I find that they're very fuzzy on who their target customer is. So, well, we
Mm.
can serve this industry, we could do this here, we can do that there, and they don't want to lose any of those opportunities. There's a great fear of the FOMO. If
Yeah.
if I if I if I get too tight in my fine tuning, I lose all this other revenue. So, could you just comment on that perfect customer and how an owner should really think about that?
Well, I actually take a slightly contrarian approach to the whole idea of ideal client.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you do need to understand things like industry demographics, all that kind of stuff. But what I help people create is something that actually allows you to appeal to a broader sort of range of ideal client, or and potentially even a broader market. And it's something I call a results flywheel. And it's basically how you pull apart the offer that you make and the mechanism that you follow, or the process that you follow to get somebody a result. And each of those steps can essentially appeal to a different type of client at a different point of their journey. And so, as I call it, you've got your entire marketing built into this, and it actually allows you to appeal to a broader range of people, because you essentially let the market decide. Each of those steps will have their own offer, their own message, their own marketing content, their own marketing type of campaign, their own lead magnet, whatever you want to call it. And each of those will appeal to somebody at either a different stage or wanting something slightly different. Because it doesn't matter if you get your targeting absolutely nailed on, bang on, perfect. You're not going to appeal to everyone that fits that profile with one message at a time. Because as useful as those exercises are, we are still dealing with human beings that have their own nuances and all the rest of it, and you don't know. So it's good to start with a sort of a broader definition of your ideal client, and then actually then let the market decide.
And what's interesting about that, and I think is really brilliant, Adam, is that you can have the same human at a different stage in their professional life, and a different stage in just that fiscal year. Things their boss told them we got to speed up our production, and last year was we got to reduce our cost of production. So like their needs just changed, and so you're saying the messaging you put out in the marketplace to kind of attract, like the lures, if we're going to use the fishing, I guess idea, should be sharp enough so when somebody's on that journey and they say, oh, that's the lure, I'm interested, I'm looking for that lower price, or I'm looking for the faster turnaround, or I'm looking for the additional features, whatever that is. And next year, that same fish might be looking for something else.
Absolutely. As I say, and again, we're gonna have fun playing with this whole fishing analogy. You never step in the same river twice. And what you need to understand is that, as you've said, people's points on their journey change, their priorities change, things change. It's why things like a follow-up system is, again, one of the most valuable things that you can place into your business. It's one of the highest leverage points, because when somebody comes into your world, they are interested in one particular thing, and at that time they decided not to move forward or whatever. You then have the opportunity to follow up with different pieces of value, different sort of messages, different offers, that kind of thing. And you never know when they're going to step back in that river, and they will be at a different point. Like that happens literally in a second. Like people change. Like obviously maybe not their entire needs maybe change in a second, but you kind of get the idea. It's like you never know when somebody is going to move to that next level, or that next part, or the next need, the next desire, the next problem that they're trying to solve. So if you only ever focus on one thing, that's why it's going to be difficult. And if you're not following up and at least sort of testing the market, because you never know, as great as all the tools that you can get, the CRMs and the segmentation and all the rest of it, the best way of segmenting any kind of market is by putting out a message and letting them tell you if they want it or not.
Right. So segment by interest, by behavior, because sometimes, and a lot of the segmentation science and marketing comes out of consumer marketing. And they try to just overlay it into B2B marketing, and it's different. And I would say a lot of your theories would still hold even in consumer. Obviously, it's still behavior and desire and changes. But again, in consumer, if you're looking to sell 1 million units of a new water or a new Coke or something like that, you kind of have to be a little broader. But in B2B, success could be 10 good deals a year. So
absolutely,
depending.
And it's all about relationships, this game as well. And it's all about sort of having the ability to both start and form those relationships, part of the process that we use. And this is an example of it. I sort of use a process called conversational relationship marketing, and it's all about continuing conversations with people you can either add value to, do business with, or collaborate with for a mutual benefit. Partnerships are a big part of the model. But one of the other things is, how do you start those conversations? How do you build those relationships? Well, this is an example. Like, you're listening to this podcast. This is a big, really, really amazing tool to open the doors to potential people that you found really difficult to start a conversation with. If you are after the C-suite, decision makers, one of the best things that you can do is reach out and say, I am looking to feature CEOs of the industries that are making big waves and doing amazing things. I'd love to show you off to my audience. Like, not many people say no to that, because
Right.
it's an opportunity to to tell the world, and that opens the door to a conversation, and then you've started the relationship, and then you get to continue it.
Wow. Wow. So, Adam, just one last thing as we're getting close to our time here. And again, just thank you for these insights. There's some really just great stuff here. Uh, but in the world of B2B, a lot of B2B sales pay off in a sales process. There's a salesperson, it can sometimes be the owner if it's a small company, if it's a big company, it could be one of five salespeople. Are there any specific levers in terms of enhancing or accelerating the success of the sales process? So you've gotten their interest, they've consumed your content, they've interacted, they've seen your demo, whatever. So they're kind of like orbiting the lure, as it were. And I hate to think of it, but that's kind of like aggressive, like
Yeah.
we're going to catch them. So maybe it's more collaborative than that. But just to finish the thought,
Yeah,
what do you
well,
think
I
one of the key levers in sales?
I mean, one of the tools that I help people create, and one of the problems that people have is that they don't have a predictable or a consistent way of actually handling sales. And I'm not a salesperson; I'm a marketer, and I've had to kind of create this from my own problem and my own need. I'm an introvert; I hate selling and all that kind of stuff. But I help people create something that I call a conversion hook, and that is a reason to first of all reach out and have a conversation in the first place, which actually will deliver value and a result at the end of the actual conversation. But it is more of a diagnostic session, and it's interview based selling.
Hmm.
So it never feels like you're being sold to, and it's kind of like you you look at and you ask questions. Where are you now? Where do you want to get to? Let's look at the gap. What are some of the challenges, etc. And then you actually diagnose something, and you actually say to someone, well, these are some of the things that I can see can be used to actually move the needle or move you towards your goal. And if you implemented these, what is the confidence level that you think you could actually reach your goal? And you hope that they're going to say a particular 100%. And then you simply then have the, okay, where do you want to go from here? Or would you like some help to do that? And would you like that to be me? And obviously that's a very quick way of trying to explain the sort of process, but it's
Oh,
kind of like step by step. You have certain assets that you have in place for each person, and then therefore it becomes systemized and it becomes a process. It becomes easier to hire and train people to actually do it. And the beauty of it is it's measurable. Like if something is going wrong, you can say, right, where is it going wrong? Like where are people dropping off? Like what is not going right? Is it that my sales team need more help, more training? It's I've had to create a lot of this for myself because I'm ADHD like nothing else, and I will get distracted like anything else. So a lot of what I've created to help other businesses, it's come from my own need, but also it's kind of like it's also a little bit my superpower because I've had to create these to make my life easier. And actually, I've realized that they help a lot more other people, and it's all about systems and process. And I used to be the kind of person that thought, well, that's really stifling, whereas actually systems will set you free
right.
because it's systems and structure that actually free up your time. You know, conversely, you don't really think of it like that. But when you know what is happening next, what step to take, you don't waste thought, you don't burn brain cells. You really know what's going to happen. So yeah, I'm not sure if that fully answered the question,
No, but
but
it certainly helps, and I love the approach of it's, and I definitely echo the sentiment that look, we're dealing with human beings, so let's have human conversations. If there's something I offer of value to a person I'm talking to, if they want to talk to me, then they're hoping I have something of value, or else we wouldn't be having a conversation. And there's no need to push it. There's a way to do that, and this really helps because not everybody has the same level of skill. So you make it kind of simpler to say, "Can you have a conversation?" You can have a conversation. Well, Adam, look, I am so grateful. This is really great stuff, great insights. I'm sure our listeners appreciate it as well. So thank you for stopping by. And if somebody listening to this says, "Gee, this sounds like something I'd like to know more about," I'd like to know more about Adam, where should they go to learn more about you?
well, first of all, thank you for having me on. It has been a pleasure and always good to talk to a kindred spirit as well. So thank you. It's been great. I hope I've shared enough value with your listeners. And if I have, and you want to find out a little bit more, and you're listening to a podcast. So first of all, you can check out the B2B Growth Think Tank podcast, which is at, or you can find it on Apple, Spotify if you search, but there'll be links, or you can go to b2bgrowththink.com and that will take you to the podcast. There's something slightly different there in that I have what is called a virtual hot seat on each of the shows, where the guest and I will brainstorm a solution to a listener's challenge that they've sent in, or they may be looking to maximize an opportunity. So we kind of like brainstorm ideas and actually solve challenges on the show there. Or if you want a copy of the revenue multiplier calculator that I sort of alluded to at the beginning, you can get that at thinklikeafish.co.uk/calculator. You'll get a copy, and you'll see there's a bit of a video that shows you how to use it and walks you through how to get the most out of it.
Fantastic, Adam. Thank you. That's so generous and very much appreciated. Again, thank you for your generosity of spirit, great insights that you shared, and your time.
Well, thank you very much. Have a great day.